Morning everyone, welcome to this Advanced Steel webinar where today we're going to be looking at resolving some common issues with drawing views. So my name's Rob Merriman, if you haven't met me before, that's me. I've basically been working in the steel industry since I left university. I started off as a architectural metalwork draftsman and then changed companies to do more structural steel work. And all of it has been using advanced steel. I now work as an application engineer for Graitec UK. So I do training, technical support, implementation and customization for structural CAD packages, predominantly focused on advanced steel, but with advanced steel now being in the AEC collection, we look at all parts of the AEC collection to help you guys with your steel work. Just a little bit about Graitec before we crack on with today's session. So we are a global company with 550 staff. We are technically driven. Out of that 550, 355 are technical staff. So we're 30 years old, operate through 11 countries and 48 offices worldwide. We are becoming one of the largest Autodesk partners worldwide. Like I said, we've got 550 staff. We do have our own research and development center out in Romania with 100 staff who look at developing our own Graitec products, so the power packs and things like advanced design. And we are here to help you guys, our customers. So we have a 98% excellent or good feedback on our support, and that's over 50,000 support cases per year. And we deliver 3,500 training courses across the whole world. So why Graitec? We are the only company that can take you from start to finish through your project, and we've broken down that journey into 4 areas. So they are create, simulate, fabricate and manage. So create is taking the Autodesk products and enhancing them with the Graitec power packs. Simulate is taking that model and then making sure that it will work for the real world environment, so using products such as advanced design and advanced design connection. Fabricate, obviously advanced steel sits in fabricate, but we have solutions such as Armor Plus and Advanced Workshop, which are solutions to control your workshop and the machinery and even the welders. So the system will pick up, for example, which beams has got fillet welds, which beams has got butt welds on it, and then can distribute certain assemblies to certain fabricators. And then every single stage produces data and work in progress data. So we have Graitec OpenTree to manage that data. Something that's been popping up recently is a lot of people don't quite realize all the content that we at Graitec produce for you, especially advanced steel content. So all previous webinar recordings are now found on our dedicated Advanced Steel content portal. So that's every webinar that we've done over the last 3-4 years. So you can watch them on demand. Today's webinar is being recorded and it will be up in the content portal within about 10 days. They have been going up a lot quicker than that. So you will be able to watch these and any other webinar on demand. Myself and Alec write a lot of advanced steel blogs. We try and do 1 each a month, so you get 2 advanced steel blogs. They're usually common support questions or little workflows that we've picked up or questions that we've been asked. And you can subscribe to those blogs. So if you click on the link, there is a handout in your GoToWebinar dialog box. And I've put this slide deck up, so if you click on the link, it'll take you to the blog page. And then from there, you can subscribe just to the Advanced Steel blog or all of the Graitec blogs. And we, a month or so ago now, finished the 2020 Digital BIM Up Conference. So we ran 270 classes over 3 days online. If you are a Graitec customer, you can now watch these classes again on demand from the Graitec Advantage site. And finally, if you are a Graitec UK supported customer, you should have access to the Advanced Steel Power Pack. So if you don't have it installed, you're not using it, you're not sure what tools are in it that would be beneficial for you, please just let me know and then I can set up a demo or can run through it with you. I have put in brackets there, other countries, check with your local Graitec office. So upcoming webinars. Today is resolving the common issues with drawing views. And then on Friday, I'm looking at what's new for the steel tab in Revit 2021. And then that takes us to the end of this quarter's worth of webinars. All future webinars, you will obviously get the email from Claire when it comes out. We will put it on our social media as well. And you can also check our events page because there are other webinars that we run as well. It's not just advanced steel webinars. So today we're going to be looking at things like, why are there lines missing when I run a 3D view? Why are there holes missing when I run a 3D view? Why are the fold lines missing? Why do my cut or call out views look different from the main view? If I've got two main views, each with a cut or call out, why do I end up with two section AAs? And then finally, we'll look at how do we know what's going to show in our GA views. I do have a couple of other things, but we'll see how we're doing with time and how long it takes to get through these bits. So in your handout, I have given you the sort of reason and the solution. I'll go through it in the slide and then I'll actually run some things in advanced steel. So we'll start with missing lines in the 3D view. This is probably the most common one that we get. So there's our model with a bit of ball post railing, and that all looks fine. But when we get to our drawings, we end up with something like this, where we've got missing lines in here. So why do we get that? The reason for that is there are clashes in your model, and advanced steel can't show the lines because it can't calculate them. So in this example, this rail here is too big, it's clashing with the balls. When advanced steel runs your GA views, it is effectively drawing the lines for you, but because it's clashing in the model, the system doesn't know where to draw the lines. So the way to correct that is you do have to correct the clashes in the model. There's no other way of getting around it. We do need to go and correct the clashes. So we will open up our model. Again, you guys should now be seeing my model. Yeah, that's fine. If anything doesn't look right, please just let me know in the question window. So I'm going to run this camera in here. So it's just a 3D view on the whole model. So you can go through the document manager, but I know that's the only camera in my model. So you can select the camera, right click and choose show camera detail. That will also open it up for you. And we can see in here, these lines are missing. If I click that, so it's quite a common thing that we get. If we have a look at our model, I run a clash check on these two items. There is a clash in there, and that's why it's not showing. So that is because the top rail is too big. Let's just get rid of the marking. So we'll just go into the joint properties for that. I'll just change the handrail to a smaller size. Well, I re-clash check that. It's found no errors this time. If we go back to our drawing, we update the view. We'll go back to the model, check what's in there, and now my lines are showing. So you do need to correct the model if you've got missing lines. I know it wasn't on the agenda, but why do we get these tessellation lines? So that is, these items in here are a special part. Unfortunately, at the moment, this is the way Advanced Steel deals with curved elements in special parts. I have done a webinar on special parts, which can be found on our content portal. And in that webinar, I do talk about keeping the special part as simple as possible. The simpler it is, you don't need to radius and chamfer every corner and edge, because that will give you more tessellation lines. So the simpler you keep your special part, the better. So that is the missing lines on the 3D view. The next one we're going to look at is missing holes from the GA view. So again, in our model, we've got some holes in there in the beam, but when we run our drawing, this is the result that we get. The holes aren't showing. So the first thing you have to do is, if the style is set up to show holes, then there is a management default that will allow holes in the GA views. If the style is set up not to show holes, it doesn't matter whether you've got that management style on or not, it will not show the holes. So again, we'll just run through. Today is just going to be about me running drawings and then showing you what happens. So in here, I have some holes in the web of that beam. We'll run a different style. Probably should have had these run beforehand, but there we are. As always on a demonstration, it goes on a go slow. So again, we can select that camera and do show camera detail. Okay, that style does label everything, so I can just do select similar. Now the only thing with select similar is the label for the view is classed as a label, so we'll just deselect that and then delete the labels. And you can see in there we don't have the hole showing. So if we go back to management tools, now when we're in defaults, I like to use the filter, so I know this is relating to holes. So this is presentation, drawing presentation, general. Holes in arrangement drawings is unticked. So if we tick that, reload the settings, I will, as a double check, just reload the settings there, and then we'll do update detail. Now sometimes if you find it doesn't update, you might need to update the drawing through the document manager. Sometimes for the default to take effect, we will need to shut advanced deal down. Most of them take effect straight away. Some of them you do need to shut advanced deal down to get it to take effect. But this now updates with the holes in the drawing. So again, that is a management default I would have on all the time. The next we're going to look at, so this, the original style, I believe is set up not to show holes at all anyway. So different styles will show different things. We'll have a look at that later. So we'll just come back into here. So again, in the handout, I've given you where the default is stored. So the next one we're going to look at is, why do we have missing fold lines? So we've got a folded plate on our steel beam, but when we run the drawing, we don't have the fold lines as we do in the model. We won't get all of them, but we just need something in there to show the guys on site, show the guys approving that that is a folded plate. So again, that is a management default to hide the fold lines. So it's drawing presentation general, and then you've got the option for hides the fold lines. So we don't need to rerun a drawing. We've got this drawing in here, you can see that. So now if we use the filter and we do fold, we've got drawing presentation, hides the fold line. So that again is ticked as a default, so it is going to hide your fold lines. So we'll reload the databases, just double check that they're all reloaded, and then we'll update update the view. So a lot of today is management defaults, and they're all little things, but these little things can make a big difference in how your drawings are presented and probably the day-to-day frustrations that you might get with drawing views in Advanced Steel. So there's our fold lines now showing in the drawings. So now we're going to look at the cut and the call out views not matching the main view. So we have our, it's going to kick itself into life, our main view. So that main view there is showing the bolt and the hole information. But when I do a call out view, it's giving me a section with no bolts or anything. So there are two ways of controlling this. The cut and call out views don't match the main view. I believe Advanced Steel 2016, 2017, the section view always used the same style as the main view. That doesn't happen anymore. We have asked Autodesk to put that back in as a management default, but it's not there yet. They actually use a management default, the cut and call out views, or you have the option to change the settings in the command line. So when you first click add a cut or call out view, in your command line there is the settings option, and if you choose that, then you can go and change the settings. Or as a default, if you don't change the settings, every view will use cross sections right, which is great if you're adding sections to part and assembly drawings. Not so great when you're adding views to GA drawings. So we'll just, again, we'll just run a plan on this and then we'll just show that to you guys. So I've chosen a different style for my plan, one that shows bolts rather than the floor plan one which doesn't. So you can see in here we have the bolts, and if we do create call out view, we won't change anything. We'll get our detail A, and then that runs with that style. So if we double click on that style, if we double click on the detail, it will actually list all the styles that are used. So we have section selected plus pick box, so that is my overall plan, and if you click the preview it will draw a little box around it. You can see in here my section A, or my call out A, is using the cross sections right. So if I do create call out view, before I click anything, in here I have a settings option. So I can click settings, and then this is where I can choose the style. Well, I don't want it to be an assembly style. I want it to use section pick box like the other one, and this is where I can change the scale. So we could make that 1 to 5, and we'll do this column. So that is detail B. So we can see in here, it's a bigger scale, and now it's using the style that I've chosen. Or like we said, if we go to Drawings General and General, if we scroll down a little bit, we can see default view request for call out views, the advanced ones, or call out user ones, and the same for cut views. So you could change, if you find that you're always adding cut and call outs to GA drawings predominantly, and maybe only the odd one in assembly drawings, you could change that to run the style that you want rather than the cross sections right, which would be more the style used for part and assembly drawings. So this one crops up quite a lot on tech support with us, is why do I have 2 view AAs or 2 A callouts? So the reason for that, so that's the example that we get, 2 AAs. So what you've got there, the reason for that is there are 2 main views on the drawing. So you've got one drawing, maybe with 2 sections on, and you add a section on each one or a call out on each one. What the system is set up out of the box to do is it's set up to say, we'll only run an AA for the first view and then run an AA for the second view. And there is a management tool to make those names unique. So they're unique per drawing. So in there it says unique cut view names within the drawing sheet. So that will say, even if you run an AA on one view, when you run a section on a separate view, that has to be BB. Now with this one, what we have found is once you change the default, you do need to update the drawing through the document manager, and then you may still have to update each view individually in the drawing. So again, we will just run through that process. So we'll just close these down. Yes, we'll save that one. And yes, we'll save that one. So what we need to do is we need to run 2 views on a sheet. So I've got a couple of sections on the grid lines. Not quite sure why it's taking so long to run 2 drawings, but yeah, and it's put them on different views, although when I tested this yesterday, it put both of those on the same drawing. Okay, so we'll add an extra little tip in here. If we want both those views on the same drawing, it is very simple. We just open the document manager. So if we do a preview, I've got drawing 103. Don't quite see why it couldn't fit both of those on there. And then drawing 4. So what I can do is if I expand this drawing, that will list every detail that is on the drawing. So don't click on the actual drawing itself, click on the detail. So that is section on grid B. And that will give you a preview just around the detail. You can then click and drag that detail onto a different drawing. So we'll move it onto 103, but keep an eye out on what happens to my drawing 104. So if we now click on 103 to preview the whole drawing, it will have moved that section onto the drawing. You can see that it's listing section on grid A and section on grid B within the drawing. But my drawing 104 has gone. The Advanced Steel will not let you have an empty drawing sheet. So because drawing 104 only had one detail on it, and I dragged that onto a different drawing, the system deletes drawing 104 because it was just a drawing border with nothing on it. So that's how you can drag and drop views between drawings. You don't have to update anything. I'm running 2021. Even in 2020, you don't have to update everything. It will do it automatically. In older versions, 2019 and before, when you drag and drop, it would then go into an unknown category and you would have to force update the view. The newer versions of the system, it does that automatically. So if let's add a little section in on the top of each one. So we'll do, there's my section A. So, and in 2021, there are new symbols for GAs and different symbols for you can have different symbols on assembly drawings or different symbols on GA drawings. So they've added in that. Alec did a webinar on Monday about what's new in Advanced Steel 2021. And that is potentially up on our content portal already. So you do have different control over the sections. But you can see I've now got this one detail, and I've got section A on my grid B, but I also have section A on grid A. Now I want section A and section B because that might confuse people who are approving it, and really you shouldn't have the same section with the same label when we're sectioning different drawings. So like we said, that is again another management tools. So that is in drawing labeling and general, and that is an odd one to find. That is called unique cut view names in the drawing sheet. So if I tick that, and we'll load that setting in, just from experience, simply updating these is not sort of good enough. Because we've got two different views, we actually need to update the whole drawing first to take into account that management default. So what we'll do is we'll open the document manager, and we will force update that drawing. So we've got to force update the drawing because the management default relates to the drawing, not an individual view. And then once it's updated, we will try just renaming them. We might find that we still need to update the views individually within the drawing. So you'll see that they're still section A and section A. But if we now say update, you can update any detail. We'll update this detail. And then if I use the renumber cut views, we'll see that that label has now gone to B. What we probably need to do is update this view as well. Like I said, we've needed to update the detail because it's a default, but it is always best to go and actually update all the views. But once I've got that management default set, that will be the same now in any drawing. So there you go, that one is now updated to B. So I now have, although they are separate details, that's one detail, that is a second separate detail, I've now got A and B as my section numbers. So now we're going to look at how do we actually know what will show on our drawing. So if you're using cameras, well, even if you're not using cameras, you'll know that there are lots of styles in the system. So how do we know what will show within the style? How do we know what's the best style to use for the output we want? Come on, are you going to kick into life? Too far now. So although in the UK we teach everyone to use cameras because you've got a bit more control, we can use the drawing style palette and the preview arrow for a description of what's shown or isn't shown within the style. So if we open the palette, I'm not actually going to use anything from the palette, but I'm going to use this little preview window, and then each style will actually tell you what is shown in there. So for example, we are looking at, I believe this one is a section pick box, I probably should have highlighted that. It's a cross section through the entire structure, intended for small areas or close-ups, but hidden detail is included and bolts and holes are shown. So if we actually go and have a look at my advanced steel, I'll just move the model out of the way for a second. And it's not a palette that I have open very often, but if we go into the drawing styles, if we start with a GA plan drawing and we use this little preview arrow, so you have these on every palette and it will give you a preview and a description of what it's going to do. If we look at base detail pick box, for example, and we can make this bigger, and you can pan around in here, the base detail pick box will give you that, but the base detail UCS will give you something slightly differently. The floor plan hot rolled all will slice through the entire structure, but it will only show the hot rolled parts. Hidden lines are shown. No handrail is shown, so if you've got handrail on your plan and you want to see it, don't use floor plan hot rolled all, and it doesn't show you bolts or holes. If we look at the cold rolled one, it does a plan of the entire structure, including the cold rolled parts, but this one is only the cold rolled objects that are labeled and dimensioned. And again, hidden lines are shown, and no handrails are shown, or no bolts or holes are shown. So that is a very quick way, and it works very well for the 3D views as well. So you've got the all no labels. You can see in here, bolts and holes are not shown. So that 3D view all no labels will not show you bolts and holes. Now, what I'm going to show you next, you need to be very, very careful of. We're actually going to go into the drawing style manager. So this is a little bit extra. I would say before you do any of this, you need to back up a particular database, because if you break the drawing style manager, you're probably going to have to do a reinstall to put it back, because one change can have massive effects on the whole system. So it is in your advanced steel data folder, which is C program data Autodesk, the advanced steel that you're running. I'm running the GBR folder, and there is a user 2 folder, and in there is a data folder, and there is an ASTA add-in. Now that ASTA add-in is every bit of customization that you add into the system. So especially if you're not confident with what you're doing, if you're not confident, I would probably stay away from the drawing style manager, but that's where all the changes are made. So I would always have a backup. When you get to a certain point and you're happy with things, take another backup and just constantly keep backups. So if we have a look at the actual drawing style manager, this is another way of us figuring out what the system will show us. Now, there are two parts of the system, the advance and the user. The way I sort of describe these is these are two filing cabinets. When you install advanced steel, both filing cabinets contain exactly the same data. So someone's just copied a filing cabinet. The advanced filing cabinet is completely locked to everyone. Even us, there's no backdoor key, there's no hack to get around it. So you can't edit anything in the advanced part of the system. You'll see in there that if we look at everything's grayed out in here, all the options are grayed out, so we can't change that. What we can change is the user part. So that is the copied filing cabinet without the lock on it. So if we look at GA plan, for example, and floor plan hot rolled all, and this is where, if you don't know what you're doing, please don't mess about in here. We can look at the view, and then we can look at the presentation. And then in here, this tells me what it's going to do for these particular model objects. Now, this is a complicated part of the system. Once you get your head around it, it does make sense. If you are interested in customizing your drawing styles, it is a service that we at Graitec UK offer. We can actually just do it for you. You tell us what you want to happen, and we will do it for you and just send you back your data. Or Alec runs a 2-day training course, which we can deliver online, where he will actually explain how all of this works so that you can customize your drawings. But in here, basically, are all these different roles, and you can see that all of the railing options are turned off. If we look at the bolts are off. Now, please never just come in here and start changing things on, because that floor plan hot rolled will be used in 5 or 6 different styles. So if I change it in this one style, I will break it for all the other styles and then I will mess things up. So that's why you need a backup of your database, and you do really need to know what you are doing to achieve the outputs you want. But once you understand it, it's not as daunting as when you first look at it. So that is how we can see what is showing. I would, to begin with, just use the style and use the little preview. That little preview tab is available in most of the palettes. So if we look at the connection vault, most of you probably have it closed, but if you're new to Advanced Steel or you're just starting off or you're not sure what a connection will do, even on the connections, if I hover over tube base plate, it will say this only works on square, rectangular or circular tubes. The selection order, if you've got, say, a double click angle, it tells you that you want to do the main beam, then the first intersecting beam, then the second intersecting beam, and that works on any profiles, and it will give you a description of what it's going to do. The same with the drawing processes. There will be a description of what the processes are going to do, how it's going to work, what it's going to do. So that little preview tab is a very useful function in Advanced Steel. Okay, what we're going to do in here, the last bit that I'm going to show you is a column layout. So some people don't realize that there is a particular style. If you're doing a column layout, which I don't have set up in here, that's the overall plan. So I'm just going to change this to foundation layout. If I'm doing a foundation layout, there is a style in here called stanchion layout all. So I'm going to run that and we'll say we'll lock the front just to 0.5 meters. So stanchion layout, in certain parts of the world, columns are called stanchions. So this will just do the column layout for us. We'll show you a couple of extra tips and tricks in here as well. And that will take us up to about the 45-minute mark, and then that'll probably be the end of today's webinar. So we'll run that stanchion layout, just show you what else I've done in here. And I've put my base plates on. I have named the joints because I will get given the base plate information from my connection engineer, and he will probably call them base plate 1, base plate 2, base plate 3. So for someone who's checking my model against the engineer's calculations, we want to make life easy for them, so I will use the same reference as my connection engineer. I'm not sure if I pushed the all cameras out. I think I did, so it's now trying to run every camera in my model. So you've just got to wait for it to. So if my connection engineer calls it base plate 1, when you put the base plate macro in, you do have the option in the dialog box to name the joint. So if I name it base plate 1 and use the stanchion layout, that will actually put the label automatically on the drawing for us. So again, it just saves us time when we're editing and we're adding labels to our drawings. But I am just unfortunately going to have to wait for this to finish because I've pushed the wrong button. Oh, no, still going. Always on a go slow when you need it to run quickly. Okay, so if we look at the joint properties for this base plate, and this works on any joint, so if you're doing a floor plan and you've got 5 different connections, well, I've named that base type 1. And then when I've propagated the joint or I've copied it around and I've put it in a group, if it's part of the group, it's another way of you within the model checking what's going on because it copies that name and blanks it out. So we know that's base type 1. I have a base type 2 over here, and I have a base type 3 over here. So if we look at this camera, finally, the stanchion layout automatically labels any joint names it finds on the base plates. So it puts the section size at 45 degrees. Yes, we could customize that label to show the mark number, but anytime you have a base plate joint named, that will come up automatically on the stanchion layout. So we got base type 1, base type 2. Okay, I've got base type 3, but why don't I have a column showing in there? That goes back to the drawing styles, and the stanchion layout is set up to only show items with the model roll base plate and column and the concrete elements. So this column in here is called column, but I've named this beam. So that's why it doesn't show, because that style doesn't show beam elements because it's set up to only show, it's basically a column layout. So if I change that to column and we update that drawing, that will now update to show that item in there. And I want it to be a column because when it numbers it, I want it to be called C something. So you see now it's put it on there with the mark with the item name. So all of these have to be driven by the model rolls. If you're only using beam and plate for your model rolls, I can guarantee you're not getting the best out of the system. If I quickly just get up an example, and then that will be the end of today's webinar. So if anyone does have any questions, if you want to start typing them in the box now, and then I can pick any up towards the end. I've got an example from our training. Examples of good and bad models. So I'll just open it up for you guys. View full screen. Okay, so you should now see on my screen an example drawing. Now this has been modelled, or the person modelling it has tried to model it. It is a roof bracing in their model. But what they've done is they've called it beam. Now what the system does, when the model roll is critical to everything. If you have a bad model roll, I can guarantee you'll be getting bad drawings out of the system. They still might not be perfect for your workshop, but that they can be customized. But what the system is saying is go into that filing cabinet we talked about and pull out the information for the beam drawing. But we don't want a beam drawing, we want a bracing drawing. So that is run automatically with nothing touched on it. What we've done is we've changed the model roll to roof bracing, and we've corrected these model rolls, and that is what you get out of the box. So you go from that to that without changing anything. We've not touched anything on there. Yes, we probably want to move some labels around. You guys might want some different dimensions on there, but as a starting point, that in my opinion is a lot better than that. The same for rafters. Now this is a terrible drawing because everything in here has been called beam or plate. So you can see here that's running a beam drawing. These, what should be end views, because these have just been called plate, it won't run the right drawing. This is what you get out the box if you correct the model rolls. The main item here is called rafter. These end plates, there is a model roll for end plate, and if you call it end plate, it will align automatically for you. These items on top are called, I believe, fin plate or shear plate. So again, different model rolls will give you different results. Now, if you're not sure what model rolls to use, because I admit there are a lot in the system, you want to be using macros in Advanced Steel as much as possible. So this portal frame was put in with the portal frame macro. The columns are called column. The rafters, there is a model roll for rafter. So even if the portal frame macro won't do what you want, use the macros to see what model rolls the system assigns automatically. So this connection in here has been put on with the haunch connection. That piece in there is not called a beam. It's called a haunch beam because that will give me different dimensions on the drawings than if I called it beam. This plate is not called plate. It is called end plate. The base plate is called base plate because it triggers certain dimensions and certain rules. This item in here, I think, will be a shear plate. It's a purlin plate. So there's a difference between a purlin plate and something else because then we can control the dimensions. Again, you might not use the stairs or the railing macros. You might do all your railings manually. If you do that, come and speak to us because I'm sure we can help you out with that. But if not, just draw a little bit of railing in and see what the system is using because that will use railing, handrail, landing. When it gets to the stair, there is a different model roll for railing, handrail, stair. So we can have different dimensions for sloping or horizontal pieces. So we got railing knee rail stair, railing post stair, railing post landing. The same in here, we've got stringer landing and things like that. We've got landing model rolls. So if you're not using model rolls and you're just using beam and plate, you will spend a lot of your time editing drawings when potentially you don't need to. And that takes us to the end of today's webinar. Like I said, we are here to help you, especially some of that stuff I've shown you today, the more complicated drawing style stuff. We have in the UK what we call a 5 steps to success with advanced steel. So step 1 is doing your basic training. Step 2 is what we call an implementation. So normally that will happen a week or so after training. I will come out to your offices, or when we were allowed to, we do it online at the moment, and we take the out-of-the-box advanced steel and set it up to match your company standards. So we can get your drawing sheets to match, your CAD styles to match. We can do a lot of the basic setup, all the management defaults we've been talking about today. Step 3 is the big step that we're actually doing a lot of at the moment, especially in lockdown. We can do this remotely. I've got a session booked in this afternoon. We're taking the out-of-the-box drawings and tailoring them to your requirements. So you might spend a couple of minutes on a drawing. We can probably get that down to about 15 or 20 seconds. We're not going to be able to edit everything 100%. We can get you probably 80–90% away there, but if you're manually having to add dims or delete dims or add labels automatically and it's the same on every project, that can all be customized. So if you do have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Liam. And that takes us to the end of today's session. So I will keep the session open for a few more minutes. If anyone does have any questions on what they've seen today, you do have all my contact information there. So don't hesitate to reach out to me and we will see what we can do to help you out. And I hope you found some of the tips and bits and pieces shown in there useful. Okay, well, I can't see any questions coming through, so we will call it a day there. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. Like I said, if you do have any questions, please reach out to us.